The session today. We are collaborating today. We're going to have Dr. Elizabeth Smith and Dr. Chris Budano talking about competency-based education in option 9, and then Dr. Jennifer Weiss, Associate Provost, and myself, we will follow up with some information about credit for prior learning. So we'll just go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Cassie. Oh, it is quite loud. I'll just talk like I'm talking to my 5-year-old and not a class of students. Thanks for your interest in this session today. So we're going to start by talking about competency-based education and really giving you an example of how we are applying it in the College of Education and Applied Human Sciences. So some of this is hyper-specific, but I want to give you really the background for how and why this is working. And please know, this is a pilot. We are launching our first courses in competency-based framework in January. And so we're going to learn a lot more next semester for sure. Let me start by explaining a little bit about what CBE is. Any ideas? Oh, do I need a pointer?
Sometimes we just need to make
Love
it.
it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rusty. Okay, so I pulled this definition. This is sort of my go-to definition for what is competency-based education. Students acquire and demonstrate their knowledge and skills by engaging in learning exercises, activities, and experiences that align with clearly defined programmatic outcomes. Learners earn credentials by demonstrating mastery through multiple forms of assessment, often at a personalized pace. Couple keys there: demonstrating mastery. The first time, a couple months ago, I had a meeting with a colleague and they said, explain CBE to me. And I started with this definition. And she said, oh, so they do stuff. I said, they do stuff. So students do stuff. They demonstrate mastery. This is very different from credit for prior learning that you're going to hear in a few minutes. Credit for prior learning being you get credit for something you've already done. Competency-based education gives students an opportunity to demonstrate that they have the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they need in alignment with those programmatic outcomes. But it looks different, right? When I'm explaining this to our school partners, the biggest difference is that there's no seat time. Okay, so there's no requirement that they're in a certain amount of instructional hours every week or a semester. Instead, they demonstrate mastery through multiple forms of assessment, often at a personalized pace. So we'll talk about how that's playing out for us. But in order to really give you more, I need to give you a little bit more context about what option 9 is. So for those of you not in a teacher prep program, there are now 9. Yes, this is the last one of the options so far in terms of pathways to becoming a teacher. Am I right, Marie? They stopped at 9. There's no 10 yet. Okay. Not yet, yeah, maybe this session. But these are the ways the legislators are kind of changing and updating laws to reflect more flexible pathways to becoming a teacher. So you have alternative certification where students can do like our MAT program. They can work full-time in schools while getting an MAT and become certified through option 6. Option 9 is super special and specific. And this is our population for competency-based education in the college right now. Option 9 is para-educators working full-time in classified roles in public schools in Kentucky. So it is not for everyone. So we are able to design our CBE classes for this super specific population, knowing that, that they have specific needs, that they have specific knowledge, skills, and abilities that they'll be able to demonstrate through CBE. So these courses that we're talking about today are not for new freshmen. They're not for anybody who comes to EKU. They are for people in option 9 who are para-educators already working as classified staff in a public school in Kentucky. So that's important to remember about these classes. We've converted them to CBE with those folks in mind, not just for anybody who might enroll in them. Oh, now I've done too much. Okay. Okay, so there are more than 100,000 para-educators in Kentucky. The requirements, they can pass a para-educator test, they can have taken some college, they can have just a high school diploma. So their experience really varies by person. Imagine 100,000 unique individuals with unique preparation. They work full-time, and this is designed as a grow your own program. So these are teacher pipeline programs that really look at the specific reasons that teachers get into the field and stay into the field and try to harness those qualities to get more teachers into teaching and get them to stay longer. There's some great research in the last like 5 years that show that grow your own programs, where schools look at their own communities and figure out how to get the people that already live there to teach in their schools. Those types of programs lead to greater teacher retention. Now this makes sense, right? They already live there. So they get plugged into the school, they already live there, they're part of that community, they're more likely to stay longer. This is super important for our rural school districts. They right now are facing, greater shortages than places like Fayette County, Madison County, Jefferson County. They're facing greater shortages because they have fewer options for people who live in Harlan County. We were just talking about Harlan County. So if they can find folks who already work at their schools but need to become certified teachers, or folks who are working at Family Dollar or Sonic or whatever, and want to get into the school system, and they can get into a classified position, get some of that experience, and then go into option 9, those people are a lot more likely to stay in teaching. So that's why we're targeting this group. A huge thing that happened in 2022, I think, was that the legislature, when they created option 9, they allowed for those folks who are working in public schools to count all of their work toward their clinical hours. So in nursing and OT, in education, right, we have to have field hours where students are out putting theory into practice. And so these folks can now count their work hours for their clinical components, and they don't have to leave their school district to go get extra hours. So lots of caveats. I'm trying to just help you understand this is a very specific population. So for option 9, we've created CBE courses nested within the program. So there is already an elementary ed program at EKU that is it's almost fully online. It will be fully online soon. So within that program, that is the program, the major that students can seek. Within that program, oh, this poor TV, it's back, okay. It's special today. Please love this one. Everybody online, no problems. So within the elementary ed program, you can do a traditional on-campus program. You can do now a fully online program. Our option 9 students now have the option of taking up to 9 courses that are a competency-based modality. So we haven't engaged in curriculum change. We haven't changed the program. We've just offered up to 9 courses in a different modality. Okay, so these courses are on Canvas. This was a great match because Canvas is a much better match for module-based learning than the old guy, Blackboard. Like we still have them. I don't know why we still have them. And we are creating courses that exist within the 16-week or 8-week calendar. But inside those courses, students can move at their own pace. So Chris is going to explain really how it works, and he'll take you through kind of the pacing. Students can take and complete more courses than we would typically recommend in a semester. If you're working full-time, we wouldn't say take 18 courses, take to 18 hours, right? But because of the content of these courses, they are likely going to move through these courses really fast. So the example I always use is classroom management. These are folks who are already working in classes with schools who have experience. They don't need to sit in a class with a sophomore at EKU 2 years out of high school and take a class on how to manage a classroom. They do it every day. So instead, we offer it to them through CBE, and they take these modules, they take these assessments, and they demonstrate their mastery through assessments instead of having to sit in a normal class with an EKU sophomore or something. So because of the content's directly aligned to their experience. So it allows them to move through classes a lot more quickly. And again, we're converting existing classes. We've not changed the program. We really can't. We're pretty hamstrung by accreditation requirements and making sure that candidates can pass the praxis, which is our assessment to become a teacher. And so we can't make a lot of program changes, but we can change the modality. So that's what we've done. Okay, I'm going to hand the mic over to Chris so that he can talk about how he converted CBE traditional online courses to, or option 9, traditional online courses to a CBE modality.
Right, thank you. So we, as we began this work, we really thought about how is this going to work and what are the key pieces, right, that are necessary for us to be able to make these conversions, but honor and stay true to the courses as they are currently, and that will ensure that they are still of high quality, right, the quality that we expect. And so I really began my work looking at course student learning outcomes. So the key here for me was ensuring that those learning outcomes are the same, regardless of which modality the student is using, and building then the competencies from those student learning outcomes. So all of our courses have a series of learning outcomes that are also tied to what are called in-test standards, which are essentially our standards from accreditation and from sort of national expectations for teachers, but using those two pieces to develop the course competencies. And the way that I really thought about the course competencies was taking the knowledge and the skills that are embedded in our course learning outcomes and our in-test standards, and then thinking about what does that look like then in the real world, right? In the classroom, when they're out in the classroom, how do they use those knowledge and skills in those situations in those classrooms? And so the course competencies can be made up, and in many cases are made up of several course learning outcomes that come together to then produce a set of knowledge and skills that are used by teachers in the classroom. So when writing those, I thought about what does that look like? And then for each course competency, there is one module. And I'll give you an example here in a minute, but essentially one module per course competency. That then leads us to an initial assessment to see where the students are, mainly in their knowledge, but it could also be in their knowledge and their skills of initial assessment to say, given what you already know and do in your classrooms every day, let's see where you're at. And that leads us into then specific pathways within the course itself and for that particular competency. Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. So once they have their initial assessment, we can determine, and the great part about Canvas is the fact that we can make these pathways. They have a master pass ability in Canvas that makes it much easier. And the instructional design team has been fantastic in working on this. But we set levels then to say what we consider to be proficient or not proficient, and we can put them into a pathway based on that initial assessment. For students that are proficient, there are still specific learning activities and expectations that occur within that pathway. It just is not necessarily the same number of activities, for example, right? So it's a condensed learning pathway because the student has already demonstrated they have a set of knowledge and skills that would be necessary to demonstrate the competency. And then this is, once they complete those, they can take the final assessment, which is where they demonstrate that competency for that module. If they're not proficient, they go down a much extended learning pathway. So here's one example for you where we've taken our course, our EDF 203, which is our Foundations of Education course. And you can see in the middle there, that's where we began with our student learning outcomes. These are the learning outcomes that exist in the course, the traditional face-to-face course, as well as the online course. And taking those together and thinking about what do these mean when we put them together for a teacher in the classroom? Well, it means that they have to be able to apply those in situations where they may be confronted with ethical problems in the classroom or with partners or other teachers, for example. And so then that led us to develop an initial assessment and a final assessment. And that final assessment is performance-based because they have to demonstrate that competency. So in this example, it's a series of case studies that they have to describe their the ethical issue and the relevant ethical standards, laws, et cetera, that apply and how they might then meet that situation, and how they might deal with that situation. So the process kind of, that's a quick overview, a layout of that process, of the conversion.
So you'll see, in total, we're hoping that we will end up with about 9 competency-based courses. And these are all courses that relate, again, directly to the content and the experiences that people have already had in this field. And they come out of our educational core courses. So there's an important thing to note that there's a faculty advisory group who's working with Chris on who decided what courses would be appropriate for this. They've been talking about training for other faculty and different things. And they were the ones who said, we feel good about these 8 or 9 courses being competency-based. We do not think that we should have a competency-based class for teaching children how to read. Like, that's not gonna work. You know, they need direct instruction in this. There's gonna be more in-depth, there needs to be seat time, there needs to be instructional time instead of more of a coaching model. So that class is not on the table for competency-based education. And that's really what we discovered going through sort of this exercise starting last year, was that there were some courses that worked for this and some courses that faculty felt were just not at all a match for that. So that's why we came up with this hybrid approach. Now, students can take anywhere up to those 9 courses. They have to take all the courses, but if maybe they feel really good about classroom management and they take that class as competency-based, but they want to take the full 8 or 16-week course in assessment. Maybe they don't feel confident. That's where Marie and Chris are coming in a lot, because they are doing a lot of individual advising and coaching of students. And as these courses roll out, it'll be the faculty advisors who really help students understand if they think they can be successful in each of these competency-based classes. How many things could I hold? Oh, okay, that was the last one. So I want to point out in particular, Jennifer has been a big piece of this. She did all the legwork to allow SAC COC to support SAC COC in agreeing for us to offer these courses. Is that a good way to say it?
That's perfect.
Okay. So we're really thrilled that we get to do this. There's a bunch of people who've been involved, like Chris said. You've been working directly with Matt Connell over in the Instructional Design Center, and this has been a learning experience for both of them together. But we've been the guinea pigs, so now social work or nursing or whoever can be next. There's a lot of people on that list, but Marie is a really big one too, because she's been involved in making option 9 happen, and now we're adding in these CBE classes. So it's taken a lot of people, and it's definitely not a one-person show. So would love to open up now if you have questions specific to competency-based courses, how we created these, or anything else.
I'm checking on the Zoom.
I don't see any questions. Okay, well, you know how to reach Chris and I. And you'll be, like I said, we are the guinea pigs in a lot of ways. So we're gonna find out a lot in the spring semester and be learning and revising as we go. But we're always happy to share what we've learned so far. So thank you.
Cassie, yeah. Okay, Cassie's
They
gonna,
trust me with the microphone.
Cassie's gonna get.
I don't know that I need it, but, so I do have one question for you. I'll wait until I got up here. So if people that are not currently in the program have questions about CBE, because I get a lot of people outside of the university that aren't students yet, should they contact you? Is there a website?
That's a great question. Do you want me to talk to the mic?
Sure.
Okay.
Or these.
The little guys. Oh, the elementary ed website now has a space on it where it describes that there are competency-based education courses available through option 9. Again, it's only for people who are in option 9, but they can reach out to Chris or to Marie or to me. But there's a space on the website, and we have a one-pager now that describes this. That maybe I need to send to you so that you have it. But yes, they can reach out to the college and look at the elementary ed online web page too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting. Okay, so on to credit for prior learning. Many of you all in the room I've already had conversations with, but I'll go ahead and start out with a brief overview of what credit for prior learning is. So the university understands that we have a lot of different learning going on outside of the classroom. This could come to us in the form of folks with military experience, specialized high school coursework, other types of coursework that hasn't been evaluated by the university, experience, other credentials, things of that nature. And we want, if they've already met the criteria, and I'll get into that here in a little bit, then we want to make sure that they're receiving that credit. We want to remove hurdles from students' pathways. Because that's going to we're going to retain them through graduation longer, and it's going to fare well to Eastern Kentucky University. Again, these are some of the things that we typically see with credit for prior learning. You're going to see military and training experience. Typically, whenever we get those requests, we refer those over to the Office of Military and Veterans Affairs, and Vin does a really great job over there. They have is it JST. So they have that, they've already evaluated a lot of that. But sometimes there's crossover. So military and training experience, we usually leave that to Vin, and then if we need to, we can communicate and work together on that. Work experience, a lot we're seeing out in the workforce of specialized training or certifications that people are having to needing to have to maintain their employment. And some of those correlate to some of the classes in our programs. So industry certifications and licensures like OSHA and some of those things, training credits that they may have. We like to we work with the departments on those to identify those credits available to students. Non-collegiate courses training. So you may have heard of some of these. I just had a request the other day from Sophia. What are the other, Coursera, some of the other courses where students are shopping. They're going out and they're finding ways to get those specifically general education courses and having it significantly cheaper and then transferring that in. And as you know, ACE certifies a lot of those. And so we're seeing a lot of students take advantage of that. Internships and apprenticeships. Standardized exams, we usually leave that to our testing office, but we're also reviewing those types of credit opportunities for students, and portfolio assessment. That's probably the most intensive one, and I'll go over that in a little bit. And that is where a student will have a set of experience, but they may not have a specific credential. And so through the portfolio process, they will share how they will exhibit how they have obtained that knowledge and that they're meeting those course level learning outcomes. I'm going to go past this one for a minute. Past that one for a second. Are we missing one? Missing some here.
Yes, I think they might be out of order. Which one do you want next?
I'm looking for, yeah, some of our slides are missing on there. I got it up in front of me and I'll reshare the updated one. I'll share the information that I have.
Sure.
So the academic credit, the way that what we look at is we look at our academic regulation for academic credit, and that's going to be it's on the policy website. It's 4.2.1, and it identifies how we determine credit. Within that regulation, it specifically goes through alternative forms of obtaining credit, academic credit, and it's through transcript evaluation, which we leave that to Lisa Cox and some of our folks over in the transfer office. Credit by MOU or agreement, which is a big way that we're seeing a lot of those types of things come in. Credit by examination and credit by portfolio review. So a lot of people, as we've been doing these presentations, have asked, well, what is collegiate level learning? How do you evaluate collegiate level learning? The answer is there's no one way, right? Because everyone's discipline is different. So the way that they evaluate credit in history may be very different than law enforcement because, you know, ancient history is still ancient history, right? And law enforcement policies and procedures and those types of things are updated very quickly. And so one of the ways that we're looking to help remove those hurdles are going to be to get agreements in place. So as we see things come through that are typical requests, for instance, I'm picking on Victoria Collins. I don't know if she's in here or not. We've actually worked with her quite a bit on, we have an agreement with the Department of Criminal Justice Training, so DOCJT. And so their students, when they graduate from basic training, they've arranged an agreement to where they get 15 credits that will go into a degree here, usually in law enforcement or police studies, justice studies, whatever. And Scott is in on that as well. So, but anyway, so now when those students come in, we already have an agreement in place. We do still send it to the faculty, the specialist in that area, subject matter expert, and they verify that those credentials are legit, and we just have to do the paperwork instead of the time-consuming process of reviewing everything from fresh. So the basis of collegiate level learning is that the subject matter expert has to be the one that determines the academic credit. And I'm going back to, and I think this one is up there. So faculty have the primary responsibility of determining the level and the number of credit hours. And again, that academic regulation on academic credit, if you look up academic credit regulation EKU, it'll pull that up, and it specifies that the faculty, the responsibility lies within, it has to be the faculty that determine that.
Cassie, does that go to like the department chair, and then the department chairs decide that they do it and farms it out, or how does that work?
It's different. So it's different within each department. A lot of times I'll reach out to the chair first when we're first establishing those. But after, it might be that someone else is a better fit,
Yes.
so I'll reach out to them instead. Victoria Collins, I just know that she's doing this, she works with a lot of those students, and she has the expertise, and she's considered a subject matter expert, so I just go specifically to her. Other times it might be, like I had an instance last week where it's an eCampus student, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that the student or potential student is interacting with the person that they're gonna talk to. So then the eCampus student or the eCampus advisors will work with that student to gain the academic information and then reach out. And then, you know, I'm there on the backside I just make the connection happen. So it may be different with each area. If I don't know, I'll reach out to the chair. Sometimes it's the associate dean if they're involved. So it's just different with each. There's no black and white really, just making those connections and knowing who is the best person to start with. Cool. So, but it very well may be that I reach out to the chair and then the chair says, I'm not the subject matter expert. Yeah. I mean, that's happened with Scott just a couple weeks ago. So, and then he'll deem who is the subject matter expert to review that specific course or set of courses. Okay. So, and the way that we do that, the credit has to align, or the experience or the credential or whatever it is that they're seeking, it has to align with course level objectives. So the students that are sitting in our seats or going to school here, they have to be able to show that they have been able to meet those course level outcomes, the course level. We don't just apply it in general, it's a course level.
Yeah, and Cassie, I need a box. While you're talking about that, do you want to pause there and tell everybody about all the paperwork that I make them do to document that?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually,
Feel free to explain to folks about all the paperwork that Jennifer makes them do. Yes.
So when a request comes in, if we're looking at agreements, if we're into the agreement, that means that it's been established that credit can be awarded, right? So say they've got this DOCJT transcript from the Kentucky, what is it, the St.
Scott, you fill it in.
KLOC.
KLLC. So that is their accrediting group that says, yes, this is the transcript. yes, they successfully passed the law enforcement basic training or their leadership group that they do. And so once that's been established, Jennifer works really closely with the chair or the department or whoever that expert is to say, what are the core classes that you've seen in this certification from DOCJT that align with courses here at EKU. So they work really closely on there, and then there's an appendix in establishing the, what is it you call it?
The MOA.
Yeah,
The academic agreement.
addendum 1 or
Appendix A.
Appendix A. So you'll hear her say Appendix A. So what is in that Appendix A is justification from the coursework and the SLOs identifying how they've met this with this certification through DOCJT. And so by identifying, once she works on that, everything gets finalized. I think we're doing one with aviation. We're in the process of getting that finished, and then we'll have an MOA. It will last 3 years. And then they're reviewed every 3 years. If no changes needed, then we'll just update it. But that allows the faculty that if there are updates to that discipline, that they can update that every 3 years. Is that
That's great.
good on paper?
Yeah.
So that's with agreements. We haven't gotten through the portfolio part yet, so. So with the inquiries, one of the things, let me make sure that I've covered everything that I want to cover here. Yep. Okay. So in thinking about why we established these credit for prior learning activities, so why don't we just let people come in and why don't we just force them into starting a degree, right? So we know that students are seeking opportunities outside of the university. We know that it's going on. Northern Kentucky University actually has it on their Gen Ed website about how they can take courses and how they can get a free voucher to do it. So it's not about competition, it's about serving our students. And from everything that I've read and the workshops that I've listened in on, is that those students, we're gonna retain them through graduation if we remove those hurdles, even if it's like 6 credits. And we're not talking about like, 75% of their stuff coming in. We're talking about very few numbers, like 15 credits is probably the most I've seen. But mostly it's like 3 to 6 credits that we're having come in. So it's not like their whole degree is here. We're removing hurdles for students. It's efficient for staff and faculty that are dealing with this. So they don't have to review it every single time, right? So if we have agreements and policies and practices in place, then, turnover is a real thing, right? So when new people come in, we already have this agreement in place, so we can say, hey, we've got this agreement. It already establishes that we've got this, and then the staff and the students and everyone is better served. Consistencies in processes and procedures, again, that just makes things more efficient. And then documentation and compliance. So for SAC-COC, that shows that the faculty member has reviewed it, because that's one of our things that we have to do for SAC-COC. We have to ensure that, and this gives us documentation and proof that our faculty are actually, we're not just waiving program requirements. We're looking at seeing how they have met those milestones. So, and I wish I could pull this up because I spent a long time on this to make it really
Okay.
nice for you.
You're doing great.
So we have non-EKU learners, the 2 groups of students that we see a lot of, and it's about 50-50 at this point. We have just as many non-EKU learners that are inquiring as EKU learners. The EKU learners are going to be a little bit easier because we already have them in the system. Any kind of inquiry they have there, the request is initiated, and this could come from a variety of sources. It could come from the student themselves. We have a website up now. We have an email up now. We have a contact us tool, or we're getting ready to put an interactive tool on there to say, hey, you might be eligible for credit. So we're getting a lot of requests from our own students, and sometimes it's from an advisor. I don't know what to do with this, right? So those students immediately, as soon as I see them, they'll be coded in the interaction, and anybody that's done any kind of work in Slate for advising, Zach, I'm sure that you have, there's an interaction code, and so I go ahead and plot that on there, that they're a CPL inquiry, so that if that student, because like I said, they are shopping. And so they may talk to 6 other people on campus, and so when an advisor logs in there, they'll see CPL and they'll be like, okay, I need to contact Cassie and see what she knows, or whoever's working on this. And then we refer it to the department. This happened last week. So we have students, and if they're in a program, we obviously want the college department program people working with them. And they also we want to build that relationship between them and the students. So then they take over, the subject matter expert will review those accreditations, or, those, certifications or licensures, and they'll either say, yep, this experience meets this class. And if that's the case, and the credit is met, then we have a form, which we're in the process of revamping, but it will be, it allows the student and all of the faculty members that are involved, the chair, everybody, and I think Jennifer's the last stop with that. And then that will go to the registrar's office. The registrar's office will, approve it. And then they code, once they award that credit, they're gonna be, the attribute. The attribute is gonna be a CPL awarded, so that way, over time, we can see how many students we have that have actually been awarded credit, and how long we're keeping them, and how they succeed. So that's for awarded students, current students. If not, then the subject matter expert will respond to the student and say, we did not find any kind of, correlation between your experience or your certification and our courses. Or there's nothing in our courses that meets this criteria. However, you could reach out to fire safety or EMS or something like that. So they're building that relationship with the student. We can't help you, but your experience may count here. And they give them that very detailed information. Maybe you should reach out to this other department that might be able to review. Does that make sense? Okay. So then the other part is, and then of course I'll close out the inquiry and it's all good. And there's lots, lots of inquiries. So non-EKU learners are a little bit different. They are also coded immediately as soon as I receive the response, and these come in from advisors, websites, direct emails. Once we got going, I don't know if there's like a network of people out there, like, hey, there's like a social media page, like it's here. And so everybody started calling and emailing and things. So those are also coded as CPL inquiries in the application side of Slate, so that if an application comes in, then it's already coded as, because I enter those in, and then it's coded that this person is a CPL. It started out as a CPL inquiry, so that we can get them in touch with the people that have the information. So like right now, if a new student comes in that's been a CPL inquiry, then they'll reach out to me and I'll be able to share the information that I have on them. So then at that point, right now I've been gathering all the information, but I think we're getting ready to move that to where I will gather as much information as I can and then route it to that area. They may not have, obviously they don't have a major, they're not a current student. So we find out as much information as we can and then shift them out to the discipline specific areas where their certification or their information most likely will fit. And then again, the subject matter expert will review and let us know whether it is or is not. And then I'll also ask questions like, is this something that you plan on seeing a lot of? So we can get those agreements in place so that there's less time for the faculty and staff and the student. And then we close out the request. Obviously that last request, if credit is available, we can't award it, but we can say, hey, don't forget, here's how you apply for free at EKU. So we're going to be doing a lot of the training, a lot of specific training with students who or staff that may be interacting and faculty that will be interacting with students. So advisors, registrar staff, any kind of records. We're gonna be doing a lot of those in January. You may have already seen some of the EKU Today announcements, and those will also be coming to some of the chairs and specific groups here later this week. Does anybody have a question about that process? No? Okay,
I'll check soon as well. We do have a question.
yes.
Good.
Marie, you had your hand up too.
So I'm just trying to run this through my head, so I'm gonna do it for instance, and I think I'm where you are.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
we love trivia.
so let's say.
Here, wait, Marie. There.
So let's say, for example, the paraeducator assessment. This is the paraeducator test that the paraeducators have to take to be licensed to be paraeducators.
Yes,
That is a credential,
yes.
right? So we could then take. Yeah, I'm waiting for that table. We could then take the paraeducator assessment
Yes,
and then move it down and look at the classes that are EKU specific kind of classes like English 2010 and ENG 303. These are ones that don't traditionally generalize, that we've already determined will not work for CBE, but we could do them as CPL based on the goals and standards that are in the assessment and if they have that licensure or not.
yes.
Yes?
So I expected those, that's why I was asking those questions, and it may not be approved, but it doesn't mean that they won't inquire, right?
So, I want to say a couple things. So for us, there's the paraeducator assessment, and there's also, there's also co-ops around the state that do required annual training for paras. And so I have all the modules from those. And my desire is for Chris, and I haven't said this to him yet, but to look at all of those. And once we get these classes going and say, okay, now all these assessments they have to do every summer on bloodborne pathogens or whatever, like, can we get them some credit for prior learning for that as well? In addition, I didn't mention, we have had conversations with some folks in class, in particular, some English folks, and they are working with Chris to explore the opportunities for CBE in general education. So that will be a longer trail, but it was met with interest and more discussion among, in particular, a couple folks in class. So yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Kelly Ellis from the Zoom room. Would you please speak to the cost for both CBE and credit for prior learning to the student? Is it similar to the cost of enrolling in traditional coursework?
Very good question. So the cost, and this is another perk for students, it's free. It's free. All they have to do is inquire. And then we review it. Now with credit for portfolio, the current paperwork does have a fee on it, but we're eliminating that, right? We don't want the student to have to incur that at the chance that they may get credit, right? So there will be, and I'm not sure exactly the details on this. We've only had one since I've been doing this. So the faculty, that's a little bit more time intensive with the portfolio review. So the faculty will be compensated for their time involved in that, because there may be some back and forth. There's a little bit more work that's done in mentoring the student. So that one, that's the only cost involved in that. And then of course, staff time, but the student doesn't have to bear that burden at all. Did that answer, as far as credit for prior learning? Now, I'm not exactly.
I mean,
Ready?
the cost of CBE for students is no different than the cost of taking any class that they would normally take. Thankfully, our colleagues who are taking these courses are typically at districts that have an agreement with us where they get a reduced tuition rate because they are staff at a local school and corporate partnership agreement, right? In terms of on our side, the cost is in the converting of the course, right? So Chris receives reassign time right now to convert existing courses to the CBE modality. Once those are finished, there's not an ongoing cost because they will be taught. The plan is for them to be taught in load of folks. So they'll be taught just like you might have an online section, you have a CBE section, right? Faculty who want to engage in that are going to probably be different than maybe the faculty who want to teach an online or an in-person class, because facilitating a CBE course means a student might have a lot of questions over a weekend or at night or whatever, right? So it's going to be more of a coaching model for that course. So those courses should be taught in load. The main cost comes at converting the courses and making sure faculty are compensated for that. Did I answer that correctly? Okay.
There's no additional cost to the student.
No.
Specifically for CBE.
No, they're just enrolling in a 3-credit course. This is just the modality they're taking it in. Yeah.
Very good. And then it's, yes.
So this is just a question when you think about, for instance, AP exams, one of the most common up to this point, credit for prior learning, and you have, different departments where within majors, there's a limit on what can be counted. So is there any discussion or any sense within CPL at this point of what are there determinations of, yes, this is something we'll do, but in terms of within the scope of an EKU degree, there's only a certain number of credits you can earn through prior learning, or has that been part of the discussion?
It has been part of the discussion. It's good questions. So we will fall under that 25%, like no more. They have to have the residency requirement of at least 25% here at EKU regardless. We've had some that have transferred 75% of their degree. We've had some that have requested CPL reviews, and they're not eligible for it because they've already had 74 point something credits transferred in. So that is our kind of our guide on that.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on that. Where we see the most credit coming in are those students who have military experience and are bringing in sometimes over 100 hours on a JST. So what we also find with those students is that we don't always have a lot of places to park their credit hours that apply directly to their degrees, that lands in the neverland of free electives, right? But that's where we're seeing the most volume come in. For a typical learner who says, I have experience coming from the workforce. Actually, Elizabeth, you mentioned the Dollar Tree or Family Dollar, and there are ACE reviewed management courses through the Dollar General Corporation that are approved as equivalencies across the country, which is really, really interesting as we think about these connections. Most learners are coming in seeking 9 to 15 hours. 3 hours is a great way to say yes to a potential learner at the front end of their EKU degree seeking period. So
I just read that Walmart actually had done some with ACE or one of the groups that they're going to have training that's going to have some kind of certification from it. So yes, Zach.
Just on the subject of cost, and as we're getting creative with credit, now with the
Sorry.
Is this a dice?
Yes,
Should I-
it's a microphone.
Okay. Thought I was gonna start gambling. But know that like for CBE courses that they're registered for, they'll be paying the per credit hour. Well, as the university gets also more creative with the way that it's charging for tuition, and we're allowing students to register for a certain number of courses, just bear in mind that anybody currently over 18 hours in on campus is charged that per credit hour rate for anything subsequent to it. And there are current ongoing conversations about lowering that even further. So, marketing and packaging these as opportunities to take expedited coursework. You might be able to take 18 or even more credit hours a semester. As long as they're registered for the course in that semester, they're going to come at a charge with that. And that charge will be, of course, dependent on their actual campus of enrollment. So your online students who are in an online program, they're of course getting everything as a per credit hour rate, but then the on-campus students may have some grace in there until they hit whatever threshold the university sets. Now for CPL, it seems like that is going to be articulated credit. So it's not anything that students have to register for unless, and we may be about to get their credit for, or portfolio assessments and evaluations. If those will have a registration component where students have to be in those courses. Not anymore. Well, I remember at one time there was a proposal floating around that they would be registered in a course as they evaluated a portfolio.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then there really is no cost.
So can I mention something else
Yeah.
about one way we, for ours, and I think this is a path forward, is as we partner with places that have large numbers of students who might want to do this, like we're asking those institutions to pick up part of the cost. So, like Marie just said, oh, we have a new student from Harlan County in option 9, and the Harlan County is going to pay for all of it. So like we have a meeting with 40 superintendents in about 30 minutes. And every time I talk to them, I say, if I was a superintendent, what I would do is I would pick 15 of your best paras and I would say, we're going to scholarship you to complete this if you agree to work here for 5 years after you complete this. And so Jessamine County emailed this morning and they're like looking at that type of pipeline program. So I'm hoping that will help with the cost too, because our population in particular is already making really a poverty wage. And so taking on the cost of college is something, a big deal for them to consider. So we're hoping their employer will pay a lot of it.
And something
one of
else
the
to
other
keep in
things-
mind, I was gonna say one of the other places mentioned was like Sophia and Coursera and some of those. So some of those that are credit that comes in, the cost to the student is whatever that place decides they charge for those courses. So that's not related to their like university financial aid or et cetera. So if they want to take a class with Sophia, it would probably be cheaper than their class here at EKU, but that cost is at their cost that they pay the website,
That's right.
not our cost to them.
That's right. Yes.
All right, last question. So I'm going to use this as a direct example. Our elementary education majors have to have college algebra, but often they come in with Math 105. College algebra or Math 105 then is a prereq for our upper level other math classes. So could we use CPL if they have a math to kind of finish that difference between this math class and that math class, because this one's a prereq for that one?
How is that transferred in? Is it just credit or is it like Math 105? Is it coded as Math 105?
It's 105, but that's a for instance, but so that when there's prereqs that they have the gen eds, they're not quite there. It's mostly with elementary because it's so complicated, but they're not quite there. It's close, but when you do the analysis, there may be like one SLO missing. And then, but if you look at the CPL, especially if we start looking at the credential for paraeducator, they probably have it in a different kind of way to finish that out.
So now this is like, level. This is level 2 trivia now. So Marie, we would talk on that example. We would first, so we always want to go to the easiest path for recording credit.
Yep.
So the first thing I would do is walk it even back to, okay, at the point of transfer. So the student has taken Math 105 from KCTCS, and it's currently not transferring in as Math 105 EKU.
So it comes in as EKU, but when you get further into the program, there's a prereq for 112.
What's the prereq for 112?
So like Math 201 has a prereq of 112. So really Math 105 would work, but because there's a built-in prereq of 112, it cannot be just any Math 105.
Ah, okay, great. So this is also for those of you following along with the trivia game. When we are working with folks and we're working through these examples, we are also looking at, because we're grounded in that academic credit policy that Cassie mentioned earlier, we're looking at the whole array of options. In that case, I might say, so is the best option credit for prior learning, or is there an option to look at the way the prerequisites are scaffolded that is creating the bottlenecks and barriers, right? And it's important to back things up and really look holistically at the curriculum when we're seeking these solutions related to credit for prior learning, because we also don't want to go too far with the whole credit for prior learning array of options when we can record the credit through something that has like a more consistent mechanism for verification, right? So I might look at if the barrier is to get into 201 and a student has 105. Say it again, Marie. Testing, right? Okay, so they might you could do a test as well. Credit for prior learning. So credit by testing, yes. But I would pan out even more. And honestly, that's the way a lot of the conversations go when we are consulting with faculty about looking for something that would be a standardized credit for learning agreement is, okay, what is the issue? And let's look at it from all sides, look at it really holistically. Sometimes credit for prior learning is the way forward, and we have a real exciting celebratory moment. Sometimes the exciting celebratory moment comes when we are able to reduce a barrier or a bottleneck through another means. Yeah.
We also have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Kelly has been patient.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
How does involvement in the credit for prior learning evaluation process impact the faculty members' workload, specifically for FTE calculations?
Hi, Kelly, it's Jennifer again. So this is an additional service that comes with a very modest stipend for the faculty member who is completing the evaluation. This would not be added to FTE calculations because we're supporting the faculty work through that stipend. For those departments that are utilizing credit for prior learning, that stipend is something that you would contact Cassie and I about. I'll be honest, Kelly, when we talk about credit by portfolio, where we need to singularly evaluate an experience by a subject matter expert, the quantities of that are very, very low on our campus. Because most students who are seeking credit for prior learning are seeking it by saying, I've taken the course and it's a non-collegiate course to a collegiate course, or I've completed the certification or the licensure or the training, and we have already established an agreement for that so that we don't have to evaluate it one by each individual. But we do have a way to recognize the faculty effort who are reviewing the portfolios.
And then the other ones, where it's usually pretty quick with all of the other, like the non-portfolio things, like they have this credential. Usually people in the subject matter experts are familiar with a private pilot's license, so they can evaluate that very quickly and say yes or no. Yes, it goes with our program. No, it doesn't. So there's not a whole lot of time that's required for those things outside of portfolio review. Yes.
Jim in the chat or in the Zoom has his hand raised. Jim, would you like to ask a question?
Hi, everyone. Cassie, I think you had mentioned Sophia Learning and Liz had brought that up too. Is that your area that you're overseeing?
We're not, I've heard twice this week about it, so it's recent. But people are out there, and some of them are already, if they're ACE accredited, which I think most of Sophia's classes are, or they're going through Credly and having those types of courses evaluated. A lot of that comes through the transfer office and may not even come directly to me.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because the main issue we're having, Cassie, is we've noticed like an influx within the College of Business, and I've been trying to ask around like other deans at other colleges of business as well as professors in our discipline and outside. And there's been some major concerns of the rigor of the learning that's going on there and how quick students are able to complete the courses. I've got like some links and videos and stuff I could send you afterwards, but I think we're just trying to figure out the right person to talk to about that because we're concerned that the students are transferring in specifically statistics, micro and macroeconomics, and accounting, and they're not prepped for the class that is a prerequisite for because they're able to complete the course in sometimes just like a few hours and then get a full semester's worth of credits, but then not necessarily meet the learning objectives. But we can chat later, or if you could redirect me to a person to help like move that process along, just to highlight some of those concerns and like the info we found.
Yeah, sure, Jim. That would be something to reach out to me about
Okay.
when we're looking at the transferability of the courses, and we can do some case studies on some of what you're seeing. And I'd be happy to walk you through what is happening, and then talk with the faculty about what is the desired outcome from looking at the analysis.
That works, Jennifer. I'll send you an email and we could set something up, and I'll send you some of the links and things that I found.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to meet up. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
So I'm going to touch on a couple of things, and then if you all have questions, you can let us know really quickly. I just want to touch base with our timeline for credit for prior learning. What we've been doing this fall is having a lot of informational sessions, finding out what people's questions are, launching our new website. The interactive tool should be up later this month on our website, getting some of those basic pathways for students to come in and find information. In the spring, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be having some very intensive advisor workshops. We're going to be working on student attributes for the registrar for those credits that are being awarded, so that we can begin tracking over time these students and the success of the outcomes for the credit for prior learning efforts. Summer of 2025, we're going to continue to gather more information and certifications. We currently have a shopping list, what we've called it, out with the departments of like, if they have this certification from this group, do you have courses in your program that could align easily? And then agreements and things, and then fully implementing in the fall new policies and processes.
Can I ask a question super quick?
Yes.
About this? For those advisor workshops, are those for faculty advisors, staff advisors, or anybody?
Anybody wants to come? Yep. Any advisor. Yep. And I was going to send it out to the chairs later this week. I'm having a problem getting the listserv, so I should have that later today, and then I'll get that out today. But there have been some EKU Today announcements. We'll probably be advertising it in the FCT&L newsletter as well. Are there any specific questions? We also have our new website and our new email address. Jennifer and I are both contacts for this. If you have other questions, are there any more questions on the chat? Okay. Yes.
So is it, the MOA part, right?
Yes.
Appendix A. So we, say we have faculty look at some prior learning and says it doesn't add up to this course, but there's something in there that we could give credit for. Can it be like the test system where you give like 1 hour at the 100 level? Is that generic, or is that not specific enough?
We could. I think that.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting better at the process. No, thank you. So the scenario is faculty are reviewing a non-collegiate course maybe, and it doesn't add up to meet the 3-hour equivalent of what the EKU course is. Because remember, with both CBE and CPL, we have to make it fit into an EKU course, right? And by credit hour. So we have to have the course and we have to have it attached to the credit hour. So in an event where we have, it's so close, right? We can look at doing we talked about this in the School of Justice Studies, using a free elective in the major, maybe using something that already has a variable credit hour, But the idea is we would brainstorm what we currently have in stock, right? To apply to that experience. But you could also, if you wanted to level up, you could say that with this course and an exam, this would fulfill a 3 credit hour course, right? Really make that Appendix A pop with 2 forms of credit for prior learning that would be the EKU equivalent of the course and the credit hour.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other questions? Thank you all so much for
Thanks,
the
everyone.
interaction. It's
Yeah.
been great. If you have any other questions, feel free to email us or Dr. Smith or Budano.
And we have more sessions for credit for prior learning. Oh, it's my advertising time. We have more credit for prior learning sessions all year long. Also join me for STAR sessions. Join me for program review sessions. And
QP.
and QEP sessions. We have QEP sessions that Allison Book is leading. So keep joining us in the FICTL for more activities and events.